The media tried to assure you once again that everything was mostly peaceful as you saw explosions on the side of the screen, while a politician or some media talking head was saying, oh, no, these are just peaceful, lawful protests. That's what transpired over the weekend. We're about to show you a video. It's unbelievable. Legal analyst trying to fearmonger, trying to terrify people that Trump's going to be a fascist and authoritarian, send the military in, it's against the Constitution, the police have everything well in hand. While she's speaking, you see somebody literally drop a firebomb from an overpass onto a Los Angeles police car. It's the perfect metaphor for the gaslighting that they're trying to do. We're going to show you that one in a second. First, though, Maxine Waters, congresswoman from South Central Los Angeles, came to fame during the riots in the 90s over Rodney King. She marched down the streets as her town was burning. She screamed, no justice, no peace. She wouldn't have political power if it weren't for stoking the flames of insurrection in Los Angeles. And here she is, lying to the CNN audience while the audience sees exactly what's going on in Los Angeles. Listen to what Maxine Waters has to say.
As you know, Congresswoman, the LAPD police chief, Jim McDonnell, says the level of violence he's been seeing across Los Angeles, in his word, and I'm quoting him now, is disgusting. Given that, why shouldn't the National Guard be involved?
Well, I was surprised at the way that the police chief was describing all of this. There had been no violence where anybody that was protesting hit anybody, shot anybody, threatened anybody. Nothing had happened. And so he doesn't know what to do, probably, because this is a sanctuary city and the police don't have the authority. All that he's got to do is work with the governor. The governor was not even called when he sent in the National Guard. The mayor was not even called. The president is initiating this purposely. He knows what he's doing. If he was, thinking, well, first of all, he started all this with the targeting, all of the migrants in the way that he's doing. And so, if we had people who were working together and cooperating, the governor would have been contacted, the mayor would have been contacted, and they would have said to the police, whatever the sanctuary city is, if we need to undo that at this time so that the police will have the authority, we can do that. But no, the president doesn't want that. He wants to use his power. And I am predicting he will go so far as to create martial law.
What the hell is she talking about? No, seriously, what the hell is she talking about, predicting martial law? Did you follow any of that train of thought? The Los Angeles police chief enforcing the laws on the streets of Los Angeles with regard to riot, insurrection, arson, looting has absolutely nothing to do with sanctuary laws. She sounds like a moron. She sounds like Joe Biden, frankly. What an idiot. Did you see, by the way, one American flag in the mob there at all? I saw Salvadoran flags, Mexican flags. Funny how that works. A little bit more from Maxine Waters, and then we'll move on.
I'm sure you know this, Congresswoman. There has been some violence in the course of these protests. Some police officers were assaulted.
You got to love Wolf Blitzer trying to bail her out. Nothing's happened. Nobody's gotten hurt. Nobody's dead. And Wolf knows that the audience is actually seeing this mob scene transpire. So then he has to come in and say, well, there has been a bit of violence here, Congresswoman. Hate to break it to you. I'm sure you know. Wait, if she knows, then why did she just lie to your audience, Wolf? Why don't you say, excuse me, Congress? Listen, look at how soft pedaled this is. And how, this isn't an interview. This is like a full body massage, Wolf. The appropriate thing for a journalist to say is, excuse me, Congresswoman, while you're saying nothing is going on, our viewers are seeing a mob scene with the police overwhelmed. Do you not know what's going on in your own city? Would have been the appropriate thing. But instead, Wolf Blitzer has to say, gee, I'm really sorry to bring this to your attention, Maxine, but, there has been a little bit of, ruffian work there by your guy.
And I'm sure you know this, Congresswoman. There has been some violence in the course of these protests. Some police officers were assaulted, and some vehicles were damaged in the process. So there has been some violence out there, right?
Well, the thing about it is you may have people, one or two or a few people, who will not conform. That happens everywhere. That happens in our workplace. There's always someone who does something. But we are saying to people, don't be goaded. Don't be goaded into a confrontation. Don't be goaded into violence, because that's what Trump wants. He wants the violence so that he can send in the military and create martial law. That's what he wants. And if a few people were doing that, I've not heard of anybody being shot. I've not heard of anybody being killed. I've not heard of anybody being beaten. So I don't know what all this so-called violence is all about.
All right, Congresswoman Maxine Waters of California, thanks so much for joining us. And when you get back out there, stay safe. Thank you very much.
Why does she have to stay safe, Wolf? Are you kidding? It's the summer of love out there. Stay safe. There's nothing that you just heard her. I love it. She's like, what are you talking about violence? No one's getting shot. Come on. I represent South Central. I mean, if you're not getting shot, you're not having a weekend. Boy, the bar is low here for Democrats in terms of what they consider just normal everyday behavior. What did she say? Violence happens all the time, like at your workplace. And I do love the whole thing. Don't get goaded into this, because it's the cops. The cops are goading people into throwing concrete blocks at their heads. The cops are goading people into looting a 7-Eleven. The cops are goading people into exploding cars. It's always the cops' fault. And I do love that she's echoing exactly what Gavin Newsom said, too. Don't give Trump what he wants. So think about that for a minute. Hey, everybody, don't get violence, because the real downside of you burning things and looting and harming people and maybe even murdering people, the real downside is that it helps Trump. That's the Democrats' message. The reason why you shouldn't burn our city down is because it helps Trump. How about you don't burn the city down because we live in a civilization and law and order, and, innocent people's businesses and homes shouldn't be destroyed, let alone their lives. No. The real problem is it helps Trump. These people are morally vacuous individuals. They have lost their moral compass. Everything is pointing due north at Trump. My favorite Maxine Waters moment, though, was when she demanded to go into a federal building in downtown Los Angeles, the ICE building. Watch what happened. This is fantastic.
No, I want you to... Hello. Congresswoman Waters, I just came to use my congressional authority to check on David.
Ma'am, we're logging securely now to all visitors.
Excuse me, I need to get in.
Contact our public affairs office.
I need to get in.
What are you hoping to do, Congresswoman?
I just want to see David Werta. Right.
Would a congressperson normally be able to enter the...
Normally, yes.
What is happening here?
Well, there were some of the authorities, I don't know who they were, and I'm trying to get in to see David Werta, who they have arrested. He is the head of SEIU local union here. I don't know why he was targeted. I don't know what they're doing with him. I don't know whether they're going to deport him. I want to report back to my caucus about what's happening, but they have...
That's amazing. First of all, she's completely lost it. Wighead there is like operating with half a pilot light. But I love the door slam in her face. Would a congresswoman normally be able to get it? I'm here to exercise my congressional authority. What a moron. And no, the answer to the reporter's question is no, a congresswoman can't just demand to go into any federal facility at any time. You have to make an appointment. And oh, by the way, especially not during a riot, when you're trying to lock down the building and keep people safe. And here she is with reporters trying to have a media spectacle. And what's her main concern? The president of the SEIU was arrested. the Service Employees Union, the government workers union, who really writes her checks. But that is beautiful to see the door slammed in her face. Let's be clear here and lay out something that the rest of the media is ignoring that's super important for you to know, especially when it comes to the deployment of National Guard troops. The buildings that are being attacked are federal buildings. All right, not City of Los Angeles, not County of Los Angeles, not State of California, not private residences. We're talking about a federal building in West LA, and you're talking about the ICE headquarters in downtown Los Angeles. Those buildings are being assaulted. Also, the individuals that are being targeted for violence are federal employees, federal law enforcement employees. It is not only President Trump's right to utilize the National Guard to protect federal buildings or to protect federal law enforcement officials. It is his duty to do that. It is his duty. If a president doesn't utilize the National Guard to protect federal buildings or to protect federal employees as they are under assault, he is being derelict. Also, answer one other question, because you keep hearing from Democrats and the media, well, Trump calling in the National Guard is provoking everyone. Trump calling in the National Guard has exacerbated the situation. Trump should have never called in the National Guard. That's what's created this violence. Aren't these the same people that blamed Trump for not calling in the National Guard on January 6th? Aren't these the same people that said that Trump should have called in the National Guard? And the fact that he didn't call in the National Guard was the reason January 6th was an insurrection, and Trump's guilty for being a part of the insurrection because he refused to call in the National Guard. One other thing, he literally pre-authorized the use of the National Guard in Washington, D.C., but because of federal law, the president is not allowed to call in the National Guard in the District of Columbia. That goes to the mayor or to the Speaker of the House, and they refused to call in the National Guard, not Donald Trump. But think about this. Trump is guilty because he didn't call in the National Guard on January 6th, and he's guilty because he has called in the National Guard on June 6th. As soon as that makes sense to you, you can be a card-carrying member of the Democrat Party, or you can get a press pass with the mainstream media. All right, here's California Senator Alex Padilla.
The vast majority of protesters and demonstrators are peaceful. They're passionate. When you come into a community like Los Angeles, the way that the Trump administration has, you need to expect to be countered with people who are passionate about defending fundamental rights, about standing up for due process.
There you go. I mean, listen, they're just passionate. That's all that is. That's just passion. I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling passionate, I always get smoke bombs out, maybe a couple of concrete blocks. Also, did he just say what I think he said? You know, listen, Trump administration enforcing federal law, enforcing immigration laws, this is kind of the reaction you should expect. None of these people are responsible enough to hold public office. You cannot let these people get back into power again. Not as long as this is what their position is on something so fundamental. Cory Booker, perfect example. Yesterday on Meet the Press.
The reality is we see peaceful protests launching in Los Angeles. And again, any violence against police officers should not be accepted. Local authorities can handle that. But remember, a lot of these peaceful protests are being generated because the President of the United States is sowing chaos and confusion by arresting people who are showing up for their immigration hearings, who are trying to abide by the law.
My God, the gaslighting is monumental. Also, note how many people use the same word, chaos, chaos, chaos. They've market tested this. They've done a focus group. They've decided that chaos is the word that resonates with voters. Trump is chaotic. This is all chaotic. Chaos, chaos, chaos. Meanwhile, they're the ones who are actually creating the chaos. I want to reiterate, we have laws in this country about illegal immigration, about criminals who either broke the law before they came to this country and have a criminal record. They should have never been allowed to stay in, but the Biden administration overlooked our laws and let them stay, or they've broken the law while they've been here and they should be immediately deported. Either way, we have laws, and Trump told you when he ran for office that he would enforce those laws. That's exactly what he's doing. The people who are taking to the streets and sowing violence like Cory Booker is, or excusing virus and celebrating violence, as a result of a duly elected, constitutionally authorized president enforcing the law, they're the ones who were sowing chaos. They're the ones who were celebrating insurrection. You lost the election. You made your case. The American people overwhelmingly said, we want this country run properly. We want the laws enforced. And because we're in California, which is a sanctuary state, instead of Tom Homan and DHS and ICE going to the county jail or to a federal prison and having criminal illegal aliens handed over in an orderly, safe, and secure fashion, because the Democrats who run California have decided, oh, we're not going to cooperate, we're just going to let people out. Well, that means that Homan and DHS and ICE have to go either to a place of employment or to a home, much more dangerous, makes much more of a law enforcement footprint. And yeah, people who are in the room with them, they're going after this criminal who has been arrested for grand theft auto and he's in the country illegally. And they go into a house and there's 20 other people here who are in the country illegally. They may not have broken the law other than our immigration laws. But guess what? If ICE encounters them, it's their duty to deport them too. You don't like that? Then stop being a sanctuary city. Stop being a sanctuary state. But all of this entire situation was created by the Democrats. So there you go, from Maxine Waters to Alex Padilla to Cory Booker. Oh, it's just peaceful. It's peaceful. It's really peaceful. Most of it is peaceful. I would call it peaceful. But that's not even the most tone-deaf, embarrassing, klutzy, moronic reaction from an elected Democrat. Get a load of this woman, Sarah Jacobs, Congresswoman from LA. The Buona Forchetta restaurant was one of the locations on Thursday or Friday that was raided by ICE because there were criminal illegal aliens there. By the way, the business was paying them. They should be fined as well. I hope that they are. She decides while her city is burning, while cops are being assaulted in her city, and while the LA police chief is saying, we cannot handle this, we need help, she decided to take a stand. And what a stand it was. The courage of this woman cannot be overstated. These immigration raids don't define us, but our response to them does. I was proud to have dinner at Buona Forchetta to show my support to them as they deal with the fallout of the raid, where agents threw out flashbangs in order to arrest restaurant workers, not hardened criminals. We'll continue to stand with our immigrant communities. Wow. That is brave. It's impressive. Good for you, Congresswoman. It would only be perfect if you had a little plume of smoke in the background through the window there as cities are burning, as cops are under assault. But she's got a fine looking brick oven pizza there, and she got the jamon on one side there. What would you call that? Jamon? Would you call that a little prosciutto, perhaps? Not sure what the pasta is. I'll have to circle back to this. Nice Pinot Grigio too. What a moron. And then there's this. This is exquisite. Jessica Levinson, she's a local law professor in Los Angeles at Loyola Marymount, which is right downtown. She's the go-to legal analyst whenever the city is burning, which means, she's got her hands full. It's like every other year this happens. She's also a legal analyst for CBS News, but in this case, she was a guest on the local ABC affiliate. Watch her fearmonger about how Trump's going to be a fascist and authoritarian and call out martial law. When again, I just wanted to point out, he has only called National Guard troops to protect federal law enforcement officers and federal buildings. That's his duty. But of course, she wants to terrify everyone in LA that there's going to be tanks rolling down the street because he's Stalin. But watch what happens as she makes the claim that we don't need any federal troops here. LAPD has it well in hand. Keep your eye on the right side of your screen as she makes the case that the LA Police Department has everything under control.
We could see the president potentially, again, pull the cord and say, I need to invoke the Insurrection Act. As I'm sure you've been talking about, the Insurrection Act would give the president more authority to not just federalize the National Guard, but to say that the National Guard can actually act as domestic law enforcement, that the military on U.S. soil can search, can seize, can arrest. That's not something that we're accustomed to. So I'm looking to see, obviously, what's happening right now, but also how the situation evolves and how the president reacts.
And we have seen the president allude to the fact that and we're watching, sorry, Professor, there's a split screen here on the right side of your screen. We're seeing continued demonstrations, and a firebomb was just thrown down off of the 101 freeway overpass onto one of those CHP vehicles below.
I mean, is that not perfect? Trump's the problem. Trump's causing it all. We don't need these troops. LAPD has everything well in hand. The real danger here is Trump and his fascist stormtroopers. And then literally a firebomb on one of those LA police cruisers, or the California Highway Patrol. That's the state police. In fact, I want you to watch it one more time. Keep your eye on, now that you know that the firebomb is coming. Once it comes, watch her, because when the anchor explains what the people just saw, watch her. She gives the slow blink. It's like you can do it. She's listening and says, as our viewers are watching, a firebomb dropped on a police car, and she'll give it one of these. Oh, like, everything I just said just got completely demolished. It's a beautiful moment. Watch her do the slow blink. I love the slow blink.
President allude to the fact that and we're watching, sorry, Professor, there's a split screen here on the right side of your screen. We're seeing continued demonstrations, and a firebomb was just thrown down off of the 101 freeway overpass onto one of those CHP vehicles below.
Yes, the slow blink always gets them. They can't hide. They can't hide behind the slow blink. All right, a little bit more of the media. Local media as well as national media assuring you that everything's fine, peaceful, and orderly in Los Angeles. Don't believe your eyes. They're literally doing the meme, the Leslie Nielsen meme from Police Squad, right? Is it? Well, no, it's not Police Squad. What was it? Oh God, what was the name of the series of movies? Anyway, where he's like, nothing to see here. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. That's the Leslie Nielsen meme. They're literally doing it on a daily basis.
Large group of people. It could turn very volatile if you move law enforcement in there in the wrong way and turn what is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn into a massive confrontation and altercation between officers and demonstrators.
So this is the anchor in LA on their local ABC7 affiliate saying, hey, last thing you want is to move the cops in there. Then you'll create a real crisis where we're just, watching people have fun watching cars burn. Because, that's what they do in LA. To have, I used to live in this town. There's a lot to occupy your time. You got the beach, you got the mountains, you got the Griffith Park Observatory is a beautiful place. The LA Zoo is fantastic. You got museums, you got Hollywood Boulevard. Here's the problem. The Democrats have created such a cesspool in Los Angeles. You can't go to any of those places without homeless criminal vagrants, or stepping on hypodermic needles. They've ruined the place. So now the only way you can entertain yourself and have fun, because you can't afford the Dodgers games or the Angels games, the only way you can actually have fun is to burn some cars. This used to be a huge tourist destination, amusement parks, sun, surfing, beach, all that stuff. Now we burn cars. It's LA. We burn cars.
Demonstrations had been going on right outside the Federal Detention Center. Most of those demonstrators were very peaceful. They were chanting, they were shouting. People were driving by, honking their horns. And again, they were expressing their anger about the detention of so many immigrants at the Federal Center. Most of the evening, the federal agents stayed inside the building, but at a certain point, some of the demonstrators got very close to the property. In fact, some of them went onto the property, started tagging the building, started banging at fences, and shortly after all that happened, the agents started firing off tear gas. And
this literally looks like a Saturday Night Live skit, like Weekend Update. Tell us what it's like. Oh, everyone's having fun out here. Yeah, a little close to the federal jail, but for the most part. And meanwhile, behind her, everyone's like, screw you, running by with armfuls of looted goods. You can hear the noise. It's mayhem. But meanwhile, why even bother having her on the street if she's just going to lie to you? Actually, dear, could you just step aside? We'll see for ourselves what's going on there. We don't need your expertise to tell us what we're seeing is not happening. Meanwhile, over on CNN, same thing continued last night.
So there's unrest. Let's start with there's protest. lawful protest, which is allowed in this country. There is some unrest generally dealt with by local law enforcement, and if there needs to be state support through state police, and sometimes even National Guard under a governor's authority. What is happening tonight is unprecedented.
It's just, listen, we just got some what'd she call it? Lawful protests with a little unrest. Unrest is what they're calling it. Okay. A little bit later on. Oh, this morning on CNN.
We are having an administration that's targeting peaceful protests, people that are there to protest. The president is sending the National Guard.
Look at, they had to cut away, but look at the image that they're showing their viewers as she says these are peaceful protests. It is literally mayhem in the streets. You cannot get around in Los Angeles, downtown at least, because so many of the intersections have been blocked with burning automobiles or with people on their motorcycles flying their Mexican flags, trying to take over the streets. And they're literally showing the viewers that while she says, it's all peaceful protests.
We are having an administration that's targeting peaceful protests, people that are there to protest. The president is sending the National Guard because he doesn't like the scenes. He doesn't like the scenes of people peacefully protesting.
He's sending the National Guard because the LAPD is overwhelmed. The state of California is incapable of fixing the problem, and American citizens are in danger. That's what a president is supposed to do, and he's protecting federal buildings. There's a federal ICE detention center downtown. There's a headquarters for ICE. There's a federal courthouse downtown. She's a congresswoman. She's a congresswoman, and she doesn't know this. A little bit more.
Most of the crowds, again, that I saw, that I spoke to, that I was interacting with, these are peaceful people that want to get their message across. They brought signs. They're out with families in some places, and others are obviously more agitant, have the mask on, and reportedly, I didn't see this, but reportedly throwing things back at authorities that are trying to do their jobs.
They really should watch the news more often. What do you mean you haven't seen this? Everybody saw it. Everyone saw it on social media and everybody saw it on cable news. But this is who MSNBC decides to bring in, the one person who hasn't seen the violence against law enforcement officers and against federal buildings. All right, now you saw all those videos just now. You saw all the gaslighting. You saw all the lies. Did you notice all of the foreign flags being waved? Did you notice, we keep hearing that these are our immigrant neighbors who are just as American as you are, and they contribute and they want to be here. If that's the case, why are they flying flags from their home country? If this is about Americans who just happen to be undocumented, then why don't they immediately fly the American flag when this stuff happens? I think you know why. Of course you know why. What we're seeing right now is a president who ran on this issue, won overwhelmingly on this issue, and is now trying to reverse the outrageous degradation of our border security, our border laws, and our immigration laws that we saw for the last 4 years under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. This is exactly what he said he was going to do, and he's executing it right now. And the only reason that you're seeing chaos and mayhem in the streets is because Democrats spent the end of last week stoking these flames. We talked about the fact that they were complaining about ICE agents covering their faces because they were trying to protect their identity from being doxxed and their families from being assaulted. And Hakeem Jeffries on Friday said, I'm going to tell you who all these people are. They're the problem. ICE agents the problem. It's funny. When one of the leading elected officials for the Democrats in Washington, D.C. tells the entire country that the ICE agents are the thugs, at some point, Democrat voters and the people who are, targeted by ICE because they're in the country illegally, they might start to climb on board and say, that's right, Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats, they got our back, and ICE is the problem. ICE are the thugs, so we're going to push back on ICE, and now here we are. And the only thing that would have made all of this worse is if Kamala Harris had been elected president. And Kamala Harris, for the first time since the election, put out a lengthy critique of Donald Trump, the man who humiliated her and trounced her in November. She, along with the other Democrats, have decided that this is the hill to die on. We're going to protect the criminals from foreign countries. Look at this statement. Los Angeles is my home. And like so many Americans, I'm appalled at what we are witnessing on the streets of our city. Deploying the National Guard is a dangerous escalation meant to provoke chaos. Chaos was already there. This narrative that Trump is provoking by enforcing the law and protecting federal buildings, I want to say it one more time. Federal buildings were being attacked. Federal officers were being attacked and in danger. The President of the United States is obligated to protect them. It was his right. He could have called in the Insurrection Act. He could have triggered the Insurrection Act and taken over the streets. He could have. That's the law, and George Herbert Walker Bush did it in 1992 following those riots. A lot of riots. Happens a lot. Maybe Los Angeles is the problem, not Washington, D.C., because the riots have happened in L.A. when there's a Republican in the White House and when there's a Democrat in the White House. Clinton had his own riots. Absolutely. I remember him well. You know, maybe after a while, we should start figuring out that the problem is L.A., not whoever's sitting in the Oval Office. But yeah, George Herbert Walker Bush, after the Rodney King riots, he triggered the Insurrection Act. He deployed the National Guard in California and locked down those streets. He used the National Guard to enforce the law. That's not what the National Guard is doing right now. That Trump did the bare minimum with regard to deploying the National Guard, and that was to protect federal buildings and to protect federal law enforcement. And you're not hearing that from CNN and ABC News and CBS News or any of them. That's the truth. So here's Kamala Harris again. She's the one stoking the flames. She's the one provoking. She's the one who's politicizing the violence in my former city. My daughter lives in this city right now. Well, for 2 more months. Thank God she can't get out soon enough. In addition to the recent ICE raids in Southern California across our nation, it's part of the Trump administration's cruel, calculated agenda to spread panic and division. If you're upset about the so-called ICE raids, rounding up and deporting criminal illegal immigrants, if you're really upset about that, anybody out there, be upset at this woman. She was your border czar. Those criminals wouldn't be here if it weren't for her. The only thing to do with them now, unless you want them to wreak havoc in your communities, is to round them up and deport them. They should leave on their own. I pray to God that they will, but if they don't, they need to be captured. That's just the reality. And it's all because of her, the border czar, and her decrepit mashed potato brains boss, Joe Biden. The administration's actions are not about public safety. They're about stoking fear of a community demanding dignity and due process. Protest is a powerful tool. Protest is a powerful tool. She says that after seeing cars flipped over and set on fire and concrete thrown at the heads of federal law enforcement officers. And she comes out and says protest is a powerful tool, essential in the fight for justice. And as LAPD mayor and governor have noted, demonstrations in defense of our immigrant neighbors have been overwhelmingly peaceful. Immigrant neighbors. There are immigrant neighbors. They're just like you. I continue to support the millions of Americans who are standing up to protect our most fundamental rights and freedoms. Yeah, I'm all for American rights and freedoms too. Funny how those don't actually apply in real life in any legal way or in any moral or ethical way to people whose first act in this country was to violate our laws and to violate our Constitution and continue to do so. Kamala Harris, the woman who wanted to be president of the United States, is on the side of the foreigners on our soil, breaking our laws, wreaking havoc in our streets while flying the flag of their native country. That's the woman who wanted to be president of the United States. Democrats, they have lost any level of credibility to lead this country.